Hi there, it's Daryl Boone with another board gem this week. This week I want to go over a game that's pretty unique. At least I've played a lot of games, I haven't played many games quite like it. And it's a two-player game called Martinique. Now it's designed by Emmanuel Ornella and was published originally by White Goblin maybe 10 years or so ago, 2009, 2010, something like that. English edition was available from Z-Man Games. It takes about a half hour to play, and the box says ages 10 and up. Younger kids could play it, but it is a bit thinky. This game is quite special. It's quite unique because it has two parts to the game. So it has the main part of the game in which you're moving your pirate pawns around the island, collecting trinkets which help you collect treasures, but also trying to collect information about a secret hidden treasure. And at the end of the game, if one of the players can find the hidden treasure, they win outright, and the rest of the game doesn't matter. But if nobody finds it, then you total up the points and the player with the most points wins. So it has this kind of dual thing going on. You want to try to get points in case nobody finds a treasure, but of course you also want to try to find information about the treasure because in the end, if somebody can find it, that's what's going to matter. So it has this very unique kind of pull between these two goals. So it's quite a charming game. I'm going to show you how it plays first, and then I'm going to go over why I chose this as this week's board gem. To set up the game, place the board between the players and set aside all the map tiles. There's 8 tiles, each showing a letter, and 8 tiles, each showing a number. There's also 3 large joker tiles. All the other tiles are going to be added to the bag, mixed up, and you're going to draw tiles and fill this board. Put 1 tile on every space in the middle of the board except the spaces showing the scrolls, which is where the map tiles will go, and these 4 in the middle also won't get any tiles. After you're done filling up the board, then you're going to keep adding tiles, but this time to these treasures here. These are called the small treasures. And there's going to be 1 treasure containing 2 tiles, 1 treasure containing 3, and 1 containing 4. Place the 3 large joker tiles in the center of the board where it shows the hook. And now we set up the big treasure. Each of the 2 piles of map tiles, the letters and the numbers, you're going to flip them face down. The face down side shows a little 1 number. And these are going to be mixed up. And you're going to place 1 on one of these spaces showing the big treasure. And you're going to do the same for the numbers. We're going to mix those up and add 1 to there. The remaining map tiles are going to be all mixed up, letters and numbers together. You're going to set 2 aside and place it in the hook. It's a little bit tight, but you can do it. And then finally, the rest of them go onto the board in the spaces showing the scroll symbol. Each player also gets 4 pirates, these large markers here, and 1 score marker. The score marker may come into play at the end of the game. But not necessarily, because there's 2 ways to win. There is 1 big treasure hidden somewhere on the island. Each of these tiles is either a letter or a number, and the combination together represents a coordinate. So if it said D4, you'd look at D, and this is 4, this space right here. That would be where the treasure is hidden. And if a player finds it in the last phase of the game, then they win immediately. But otherwise, you're going to figure out your score, and your score comes from collecting these treasures. You'll want to collect tiles on the board, which will allow you to collect these treasures. Because you'll see each of these treasures shows between 2 and 4 symbols. Players are going to be collecting these tiles on the board. And these tiles, when matching these symbols, will allow them to collect a treasure. You'll see there's also map tiles. Any map tiles that are not used in this coordinate are placed in the middle of the board. And so if players find those, they'll be able to eliminate certain rows and columns. If they reveal a 2, they will know that the treasure is not in column 2. So on your turn, you do one of two things. You can either place a new pirate, or you can move an existing pirate. However, your first 3 pirates have to come on the board before you can move any. So it really only comes into play for this 4th and final pirate. You can decide when to bring them in later. To add a pirate to the board, you place it on one of the tiles along the edge, on the beach. And you can place it on any tile that doesn't already have a pirate. And then each player is going to do so. So starting with the 4th pirate, instead of placing this pirate on the board, instead the player can choose to move one of their existing pirates. Pirate movement consists of picking any of your pirates. You can move any pirate of yours that you want that's on the board, and move it a number of spaces equal to the number on the tile it's sitting on. So this pirate could only move 1 space, but these 2 pirates could move 2 spaces. And movement is along the cardinal directions, so north, south, east, west, not diagonal movement. So this pirate could move to this tile, or this tile. But this pirate could move to here, or to here, or to here. This pirate has a lot of options, can go over here, or all the way around here. There's only a couple of restrictions. You are allowed to move over empty spaces. You are allowed to move through your opponent's pieces. In fact, there's an advantage to doing so, which I'll explain later. The only thing is you're not allowed to double back. So red could not go 1, 2, 3. That's not allowed. But red could go like this. And then after the movement, the player picks up that tile and puts it face up in front of them. The goal of collecting these tiles is to match the same tiles shown on the treasures. As soon as you collect all the matching symbols as shown on one of the treasures, then at the end of your turn after you collect the tiles, you can turn them in to collect the matching treasure. It's important to note the numbers don't matter in terms of matching, only the symbols. When the symbols are on the board, when the tiles are on the board, these numbers represent how far a pirate on it can move. On here, they represent points. So if red collects this tile, red may be trying to collect this treasure or this treasure, and already has 1 skull going toward that. When you have all the tiles matching all the tiles of one treasure, those tiles are set to the side of the board. They'll go back into the bag once the bag is depleted. The player will collect all the tiles of that treasure, turn them face down, and place them in a pile in their hold. This is the player's hold right here. At the end of the game, each of these tiles is going to be worth a number of points showing on the tile, that number there. In addition, the player who collects the most treasures, that is, has the most piles in their hold, is going to score bonus points. So after a treasure is claimed, you can only claim 1 treasure on your turn. You would draw replacement tiles. So there's always 3 treasures showing. Now, besides these symbol tiles, there's also these map tiles. And players can move onto these map tiles just like any other. So on black's turn, black may move to this one, and then black gets this tile. And on black's next turn, if black decides, let's say, to move this pirate, of course he could move other pirates as well. But these tiles are not replaced, that's important to note. Later on, if a player moves a pirate off of that tile, then the player gets this tile, just like they would for these. But now, of course, this is a map tile, and this will show either a letter or a number. Black looks at it, does not show the other player. In this case, you can see it's C, which matches this row. So because C is not here, black now knows the treasure, the big treasure, is not in this row. So black keeps this face down. That's secret information that only black knows. However, it is possible to steal information. Players are not allowed to land on a space occupied by another pirate, but they can move through them. So for example, if red was here, for example, red could move 2 spaces, and one of the examples is red could go here, or here, or here. Either way, red is going past his opponent's pirate. And in doing so, they get to steal information. They just pick any one of the map tiles that black has collected and flips it face up, so now it's information known to both parties. Just one tile though. Every time you pass another player, you get to flip over one of their map tiles. Now, as you can see, the game is going to continue in this fashion, and these tiles are gradually going to be removed from the board. And eventually, a player is going to move a pirate onto a space that doesn't have one of these tiles. It's either going to be on an empty space that used to have a tile, or it's going to be on one of these 4 spaces in the middle. This is called the hook. It's a little bar. So if a player ends its pirate's movement on an empty space or on the bar, immediately the pirate comes off the board and is placed on the bar. You'll see there's 8 stools numbered 1 to 8, and the first pirate to come off the board is going to go into space 1. If they ended their movement at the hook in the middle of the board, they also get to take a tile that's still there. They could take one of the map tiles, they would get to look at it and keep it face down, just like if it was one of these they captured, or they could take a joker tile. And a joker tile helps them meet the threshold in order to capture treasures. So if this player had, 1 skull and 1 treasure chest, but also had a joker, they could put these together to claim this treasure. So this joker counts as anything. If there's no tiles left in the center, then any player that ends its movement there doesn't get anything. And play is going to continue like this until eventually all the pirates are going to be off the board. Whoops, that's not a pirate. That's the pirate. Something like this. Once all pirates are off the board, the remaining tiles are removed. And when you remove them, make sure you don't look at any of the tiles, any of the map tiles, because that will give you extra information. And now comes the second part of the game. This is where players are going to try to guess where the treasure is. And we go in this order, from 1 to 8. So black would go first. Black would take this pirate. With all the information black has, black is going to pick any one of these 64 spaces. Any of these could be the treasure. So based on the information black has collected, he's going to take this pirate and put it somewhere. And then who's the next pirate? Red. And red is going to base her information on the tiles that she's collected, but also potentially what black has done. You can see, maybe black doesn't think black thinks there might be a treasure in G or 3. Well, I have 3, so I know it's not 3, but I don't have G, so maybe G is here. Okay, I'll try something like this. And then you can see number 3 is black's turn again. Oh, okay, well, maybe here or somewhere. You can go anywhere you want, and it's black's turn again. So one player can have multiple turns in a row. So you're gonna take turns placing these pirates somewhere on the board. And then finally, once all the pirates are on the board, your guesses have been locked in, then you reveal the treasure tiles. And in this case, it was G1. So the treasure was here. If a player had their pirate on this space, they immediately win. They found the big treasure and they win. But if nobody found it, as is the case here, then you have to calculate score. And how you calculate score is, first you count the number of piles. That's the number of treasures, not the tiles in the treasures. Each of these this is one treasure, this is another treasure. And as you collect treasures, they're going to be going into piles in your hold. So first, both players count the number of piles they've collected, the number of treasures. And the player who collected the most piles, the most treasures, will score 2 points. And we're going to use these as score markers here. So score 2 points, say. And then you're going to take each pile. Let's say this was one pile here. Each player is going to look at their pile and add up the numbers on them. And that's the score that they're going to be adding to their, the points are going to be adding to their score. That's 7 points, so black would go up 7 points. And be sure to put this pile back, and then get another pile and total that up, and so on. And finally, players may have a couple of these random ones left over at the end that they didn't get a chance to use to collect the treasure. In this case, every pair of the same symbol that they've collected will score them a bonus 2 points. And the player with the highest score wins. If it's a tie, then the player with the most treasures, the most piles in their hold, wins. Otherwise, it's a tie. Play again. That's it. You're ready to play Martinique. Martinique is quite a different game. And when you have a large collection, having games that are a little bit different than what you normally find becomes more valuable to you. You seek out the novelty, I suppose. So Martinique has that aspect to it. There's no other game quite like it. Now, that aspect of having the two separate goals, the goals where you're trying to collect information over the course of the game on the hidden treasure, but also trying to collect points, which matter if players don't get the treasure, that could be your opinion on that. I think opinions on that could be a bit divisive. Because if you want to be critical, you could say, well, we're doing all this stuff and collecting points, but in the end, maybe the points don't matter because my opponent just found the treasure and got lucky. So we played this whole game and that stuff didn't matter. No. Okay, if you want to be critical, I guess you could say that. It's not technically false, but it's part of the game. When you're playing the game, you can choose, like, oh, I'm going to try to collect more information, but by doing so, I'm not going to be maybe getting some good opportunities to get the smaller treasures. And even if both players just focus totally on getting information, then they're going to split that information. And maybe neither of them have enough information in order to win the game. So then the points do matter, right? It's really a balance. And you can't have one without the other. So I find that part really nice, actually. And I like the little bit of a deduction aspect, because at the end of the game, if your opponent's pirates got out first, they couldn't move anymore, so those pawns are coming on the board first, then you can kind of glean information from your opponent as to what rows and columns they have or don't have, because they're guessing on a particular row and column. But there's just enough pawns in the game that you can misdirect the other players. So let's suppose red has one pawn and then black has three, and then red has three and then black has one. So that's the order at the end of the game for the pirates to come on the board to search for the treasure. So red's like, well, I have G, and I know G is not in the treasure, but if I put my first pirate on G, my opponent doesn't know that, so maybe my opponent's influenced by that and puts their three black pawns on G. Total misdirection, and then red comes with the three next pawns and goes to the real places, right? You can do really neat stuff like that. So it really rewards multiple plays with the same pair of people. And I don't find the fact that you have this whole other game that you're playing at the same time to be a problem. That game that you're playing, that side game, if you will, is actually pretty fun. It's as fun as Hey, That's My Fish, which has a similar movement mechanism. So I really see almost nothing wrong with this game. But having said that, okay, there's one thing wrong with it, and that is at the beginning of the game, setup is really annoying because you have to fill up the island with all these tiles. That's even more annoying than something like, Hey, That's My Fish. So, okay, that's a downside. But otherwise, I can't really see anything really all that wrong with the game. But having said that, whomever I play this with, they will not like the game as much as I do. So I can't find one opponent to play this game multiple times with. I'm always introducing this with new people, and then the new people, they don't like it as much as I do. So maybe this is a bit of a divisive pick. Maybe not everybody agrees with me on this. I mean, one negative, I suppose, is that people may not feel like a pirate when they're playing. Again, it's just a light coating of setting. I think the pirate theme works as well as any other theme could work. I mean, you're searching for buried treasure. I mean, that's a piratey thing, right? But maybe because it's a grid and you're picking up the kind of these abstract, skulls and parrots and just random things like that, swords, that it's not it's not piratey to its core, right? It is an abstract game. Okay, fine. If you want a game that makes you feel like a pirate, there's lots of other board games for you. There's Pirates Cove, there's Black Fleet. If you want something a bit heavier, there's Merchants and Marauders. There's lots of choices out there for the pirate fan. And this is a little abstract game with a pirate setting, which works completely fine because you're searching for hidden treasure, and that works for me. So it's just a great, charming little game, and its ratings on Board Game Geek are actually pretty low. I think last time I checked, maybe 6.3 or something, which is pretty low. So I'm probably in the minority in liking this game. Having said that, I'm not keeping this one in my collection. I borrowed this from the restaurant, and back to the restaurant it goes. Because, like I said, I just can't find an opponent to share my love for it. But I still wanted to highlight it, as this is a game that people missed. This is a great, charming little game, and it brings something, if not new to the table, at least something unique. It's a game that's special. I always have a soft spot for games that really try to do something different. Even if they don't hit their goal 100%, they tried. And actually, they pretty much hit their goal with this one. I quite like this game, and that's why I'm highlighting it as this week's board gem. Thanks for watching. Hopefully see you next week. And remember, old games like Martinique don't stop being good just because new games come out. Take care. To bring a pirate on the board, you simply take one of the tiles on the edge of the board. You done, Max?